Today's topic is how to stay in shape during quarantine, and this is Tips with Trev, the show where I give developing baseball players some easy tips to end their slumps faster and become a superstar sooner. Let's do it. All right, obviously baseball is not going on right now, which is not ideal. A lot of people are stuck at home, are quarantined, can't go to the gym, can't get outside to throw, and are wondering how to stay in shape, how are big leaguers staying in shape, what are some things I can do to continue getting better during this time. So I have some suggestions for you, things that I've done in the past, things that I've seen done or heard about being done, and things that I've been thinking about that you could do. So let's start with throwing. How do you keep your arm going when you can't get to a field and you don't have anyone to throw with? One good suggestion is weighted baseballs. Plyo balls, driveline cells, plyo balls. You can find squishy weighted balls all over the place. But that's a great way because all you need is a brick wall and you can get in a bunch of different weights. You can throw it at high intensities and have the ball just squish against the wall and fall right at your feet. So that's one way to throw without a partner. Plus, you can get some different loads in. You can work on underload. If you need to move your arm faster, you can work on throwing the ball, throwing with more power, I guess. If you throw a heavier ball harder. You can work on the different ends of the spectrum, overload, underload training. You can work on recovery with them. You can throw them at low intensities and get good throwing volumes in and stuff. There's a lot of different things you can do with plyo balls. They're one of the most important pieces of equipment that you can have. Now, where do you throw them? Well, you can do a couple different things. I mentioned a brick wall. You want to make sure it's brick or cement, that you're not going to bust through plaster or drywall or something like that. I've done that and had to pay for it. Actually, I did that in Great American Ballpark. When I was a visitor with Cleveland, I accidentally threw against what I thought was cement and it was not, so I had to fix that wall. So don't do that. Make sure it's either brick or cement, something hard, and you can throw weighted balls against that. If you don't have that, you can find an old mattress. If you have an old mattress, set that up against a wall, and the mattress will take the brunt of the weight that you're throwing at it. You can, if you have something that's like maybe in your backyard you have a deck or some sort of awning that you can hang a blanket from, a thick blanket. You could do that and throw into the blanket, and the weight of the blanket will help deaden the ball and kind of drop it there at your feet. That's one thing that I've done before is put up a blanket. So find somewhere sturdy to hang it from if you're going to do that. Another thing that you can do if you have a net, a soft toss net, you can throw into the soft toss net. I know a lot of you young baseball players hit and pitch as well, so you can also throw into the nets that you set up for hitting. So those are just some suggestions. If you don't have weighted balls, you can do all the same things with a baseball. It gets a little bit more difficult because baseballs tend to bounce back a lot more than the plyo balls do. So something that I've done in the past is find a diagonal. So instead of throwing straight into a wall, I throw slightly diagonally and I set up a net over here. So I throw the ball, it ends up bouncing off into the net. You can kind of shrink the area that you need to throw pretty drastically if you use angles like that. I have in the past thrown without a baseball. So if you don't even have a baseball and you can't get outside to even throw against a wall or something like that, then you can actually find something that's somewhat weighted, like let's say a foosball or a lacrosse ball, or you can put something small. Think of like the core of a baseball if you've ever unwound a baseball, something that's kind of small, and you put it inside socks and you roll socks around it, and you can create this kind of softball-sized or baseball-sized object that you can then, it's a lot safer to throw it indoors because you can throw socks at a wall and nothing's going to happen to the wall as long as there's nothing super heavy in there. So in the minor leagues, when we would get into a city really late at night and after an off day or it was raining or something I didn't get to throw and I wanted to throw, you can go out in the hallway. We would go out in the hallway as teammates and ball up some socks and play catch in the hallway to keep our arms moving. it's not ideal, but it's something you can do to kind of get by if you need to. So those are some tips on the throwing side. Super important to keep your arm moving during this time. You don't want to take 3 or 4 months or however long quarantine is going to last off of throwing completely, because then when you ramp up to play again, you're going to want to play and your arm's not going to be ready to handle it. So you put yourself at a larger risk of injury. So that's on the throwing side. On the lifting side, it's hard to get to a gym right now. Not many gyms are open, if any. If you don't have a setup in your garage, you're kind of out of luck, except for the fact that you have a lot of weighted objects around your house. So if you think about, let's see, a case of waters. Perhaps you have a case of waters and you can stack 2 or 3 of those on top of each other, and you can do some sort of high volume squats or lunges with those. There's other things around the house that you can pick up and do. Trying to think of some other ones, but you can easily find like gallons of milk. If you were to have a gallon of milk or 2 in each hand and do high volume curls or tricep extensions laying down over your bed and pressing the bottles of milk up. Water bottles as well, the large jugs of water that people may have around the house. There's other household objects that you can do the same type of thing with. So you can stack up some weight just using general things that are around the house. You can potentially, if you have the right type of couch or bed, you can set up some sort of deadlifting operation with that. Probably not going to be able to get the weight up as much as you need to, but you can do at least some weight and get some volume training in. But I guess that leads me to the next point, which is there's, I guess, 4 like main types of training. You have isometric, you have eccentric, you have concentric, and plyometric. I'm just oversimplifying things a lot, but if you can't do heavy weight, which would generally be either eccentric or concentric. So for those who don't know, eccentric is lowering the weight. So if I'm doing a bicep curl and I'm lowering the weight very slowly, that's an eccentric move. If I'm holding the weight here and not moving it anywhere, that would be an isometric move. And then if I'm curling the weight, that's a concentric move. And a plyometric would be a very fast bicep curl, catching the weight and bringing it back up. So that's the basics of the kind of 4 different types of training. So right now you might not be able to get concentric training in because you don't have enough weight to really get much out of it. But you can get a lot of eccentric training in, and you can get a lot of isometric training in. And the isometrics are super important overall. What happens when you do an isometric, and again, I'm super oversimplifying this, so don't take me for knowing everything about this subject. But the very basics of it are, when you do an isometric, the muscle fibers lock together, and so you end up putting the stress on the connective tissue. Not the stress in a bad way, but you end up being able to actually train the connective tissue because the muscle fibers are locked and contracted. So you can do that right now in long duration, let's say wall squats, or an isometric lunge hold, or an isometric push-up, or you can do a lot of these different things. You can find weight around the house to do them, because you don't need as much weight for isometrics because you're generally holding them for a long time. So that becomes your weight. That actually really helps when you do those keep you healthy. So you can train that at home fairly easily. You can train eccentrics pretty well as well. Again, finding gallons of milk or something to hold if you're going to do curls, and just like very slowly going down, or push-ups where you're spending 5 seconds on the way down and up, and then 5 seconds on the way down, and you do as many as you can. So those can get tiring fairly quickly and actually do you a lot of good. Probably something that should be in your routine, your strength lifting program overall anyway. So get creative around the house on the strength and conditioning side of things. Use household items for weights and train isometrically or eccentrically if you can. Let's see here. The last thing that I really wanted to talk about on this front is keeping your mind sharp. That's one thing that's really big. When you jump back into competition after not being in competition for a while, your mind isn't firing in the way it normally is. You're not in the same mindset. You have a lot of uninterrupted time right now where you can't leave the house. You can get a lot better intellectually. You can study a lot. You can watch games on TV. You can watch video of yourself from the past. You can learn about a new subject. You can learn more about strength training. You can learn more about conditioning. You can learn more about analytics and anything that you're going to be using in a game, how to tunnel, how to sequence pitches, how to read hitters, how to, what makes a good swing, how does the human body move. There's a lot of things that you can get better at right now by researching that are going to help you, once you get back into training, be a better player. So I think a lot of times that goes it doesn't get talked about as much as it probably should, but you have a lot of development time right now stuck inside. So use it, maximize it. If you can't get as good as you might be able to physically, use that time to get better mentally. There's a lot of different ways you can go about doing that. So some people that put out really good information. I try to put out some information for you guys here on YouTube. You have Driveline that has their blog that puts out a lot of different stuff. DST in Houston has a lot of stuff going on right now. Kevin Poppy on Twitter. They're doing some online training and consulting and whatnot. You have Alan Jager that puts out really good stuff on long toss. You have Barton Smith, who's putting out a lot of good stuff on fluid dynamics and how the ball actually moves in the air. You have I could go on for a very long time listing off people that have really good advice. But go out there and research for yourself and find things that can make you a better baseball player. Use Twitter, use Instagram, use YouTube right now as resources. Ask people, who they get their information from or where they're getting it from or anything like that. But keep your mind sharp. Education is a super important one. Continuing your education and continuing to get smarter and know more. So those are kind of the 3 tips for today. How to stay in shape throwing wise, some creative ways to do that. How to stay in shape lifting wise with household objects and eccentric and isometric positions, and then how to continue your education while we're stuck inside. So if you have any questions or want more resources or whatever, leave me a comment in the comments below. Hit that like button if you like this video and share it with people that could get some use out of this. I have a goal of getting to 100,000 subscribers by the end of 2020. So the more people you share this with, the more that helps me out in my goal, and the more I can help you out and more people out along the way, which is ultimately what matters to me. So without further ado, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Have a great day. Stay safe, stay healthy, be responsible, and hopefully we get baseball back soon.